Amir Winter's story is a powerful reminder of the dangers of being naive, especially for young people in complicated relationships. As Amir gets involved with older men, she learns that not everyone has her best interests at heart. Relationships with big age differences can quickly change from love to obsession, so it's important to pay attention to how people treat you. Amir's experiences show us that love should never come with jealousy or control. Every choice we make can have serious consequences, not just for us, but for others too. Her story teaches us to be careful and aware, as life can be fragile, and sometimes love can lead to dangerous situations. Before moving forward, as you guys know well, on the creation of video, it's take time to prepare a video. So it's required time to take fictional or crime stories. So I really need your help in completing my 10K subscriber hope. So you press the button, let's dive into the story. Amir Winter was the kind of girl who couldn't go unnoticed in Ellenville, a small, quiet town. At just 18, she was tall and had striking features that caught the attention of everyone around her. People who knew her said she was very mature for her age, having grown up too quickly in a place that felt too small for her big dreams. Since her senior year of high school, Amir worked part-time at a diner on the edge of town. The diner was nothing special. It had old booths, flickering neon lights, and a jukebox that didn't work anymore. Still, it was a comfortable place where people could sit and share secrets over greasy burgers and watered-down coffee. Amir had a natural charm that made her popular with the customers, especially the older men who visited the diner. Her friendly conversations made her a favorite, but beneath her cheerful exterior, she was involved in a dangerous situation that no one noticed. Life at home was tough. Amir's father had left when she was young, leaving her mother, AA, to raise her alone. AA worked long hours at the local pharmacy and often came home too tired to notice the changes in Amir. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, and the expensive jewelry Amir never explained. To AA, her daughter was just growing up, preparing to leave home. But in reality, Amir's life was taking a turn no one expected. It wasn't just the diner customers who noticed Amir. She had become involved with 3 older men, each offering her something she wanted. The first was Lucan Miles, a 52-year-old widower. They met at the diner shortly after his wife died. Amir comforted him, and their friendship quickly turned into something more intimate. Lucan saw Amir as a way to heal his sadness, but their relationship soon became unhealthy. He became possessive and showed up at the diner unannounced, wanting to meet in private. Then there was Benedict Arlo, a 47-year-old businessman Amir met at a catering event. He was rich and powerful, and their relationship felt more like a business deal. He gave her gifts, jewelry, clothes, and money, and in return she acted like the attractive young woman he could show off in secret. While Amir enjoyed the attention, she realized that Benedict had expectations and demands that made her uncomfortable. Finally, there was Malik Hind, her high school teacher. Their relationship started as a mentor-mentee relationship, but after Amir graduated, it changed. Malik was careful, always avoiding being seen with her in public. For him, the thrill came from the secrecy and danger of their relationship. However, Amir grew tired of all the lies, sneaking around, and the complicated web of deception she had created. By the time summer arrived, Amir knew she had to end these relationships. What had begun as a way to escape boredom had turned into a confusing and overwhelming situation. Amir no longer felt in control of her life. Even worse, she had started receiving unsettling messages, especially from Lucan, who refused to let go. Deep down, Amir knew these relationships weren't sustainable, but she felt trapped by the promises she had made and the men she had become entangled with. On the night of August 17, everything changed. Amir had just finished a late shift at the diner. The air was thick with humidity, and a storm loomed on the horizon. As she walked out into the parking lot, the flickering street lamp cast long shadows around her. She felt a strange sensation that someone was watching her. Hurrying to her car, her mind raced with thoughts about the conversation she needed to have. She was determined to end things, clean up the mess she had made, and start fresh. She deserved that much, but Amir would never get the chance. Hours later, her body would be discovered by a jogger named Ronan Breen on a trail just outside of town. She had been brutally murdered, her body hidden in a shallow grave. Her once vibrant eyes were now lifeless. News of her death sent shockwaves through Ellenville, and the secrets she had buried would soon unravel, leaving everyone to question what had really happened that night and who was responsible for ending Amir Winter's young, promising life. Ronan stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat. A hand was still partially buried, its fingers curled in an unnatural way. There was no mistaking it. This wasn't an accident. Whoever had done this was no longer alive. For a few moments, Ronan stood frozen, unable to move as his mind raced through the possibilities. Then, with shaking hands, he fumbled for his phone and dialed 911. The police arrived within minutes, and the quiet trail was soon swarming with officers, their flashing lights cutting through the morning gloom. Detective Lila Lawson was the first to step out of the squad car. Her expression was sharp and focused, reflecting her experience as a seasoned investigator. In this small town, she had seen her fair share of tragic incidents, but something about this scene felt different. There was an eerie stillness in the air, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. "Show me what you found," Lila said calmly to Ronan, who was still pale and shaken. He led her down the trail to the disturbed patch of earth. 2 officers were already there, carefully working to uncover what lay beneath. The first thing they saw was the girl's hair, long, dark strands matted with dirt. As they gently removed the remaining soil, her face became visible. Even in death, there was no mistaking who she was. Amir Winter. Lila's heart sank. She had known Amir, if only in passing, like most people in Ellenville did. The girl had been a fixture at the local diner, her presence brightening the dim space. To see her here now, lifeless and discarded in a shallow grave, sent a chill through Lila's entire body. This wasn't just a crime, it felt personal. By the time Amir's body was fully uncovered, the scene was cordoned off, and a forensic team was working carefully to preserve any evidence. Amir's body showed signs of trauma, bruises on her arms and neck, likely from a struggle, along with faint marks around her. Amir's throat showed signs of strangulation. Her clothes were torn, and dirt was under her fingernails, as if she had tried to claw her way out of the grave before her final moments claimed her. Detective Lila Lawson crouched beside the body, scanning the area for any clues about what had happened. A discarded cigarette butt lay a few feet away, crushed into the dirt. There were no signs of a weapon, but the condition of Amir's body suggested that whoever did this wanted her silenced quickly, without leaving too much evidence behind. "Whoever did this wasn't trying to hide her well," Lila muttered, her voice low. "It's like they panicked, buried her in a rush, and left." Her partner, Detective Ezra Dye, stood a few steps behind, his brow furrowed as he took in the scene. "But why here? Why not somewhere more remote? It's like they wanted her to be found." Lila didn't answer right away, her mind racing through the possibilities. Amir wasn't just a victim. She was someone who had been involved with people who might have wanted her silenced. Over the past few months, there had been rumors about her relationships with older men in town, whispers that many had dismissed as mere gossip. But now those whispers took on a new significance. As Lila stood up, she glanced over at Ronan, who was still sitting on a nearby log, staring at the ground. "We need to talk to everyone who was close to her," she said quietly to Ezra. "Family, friends, anyone who knew her routines." Ezra nodded. The diner might be a good place to start. That's where she spent most of her time. Lila agreed, feeling that the more they dug into Amir's life, the more secrets they would uncover. But for now, standing over the grave of a girl whose future had been stolen, she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a random act of violence. Someone had killed Amir Winter, and they had done it for a reason. Whoever they were still out there. The investigation into Amir Winter's death began at the town's heartbeat, the diner where she had worked. Detective Lila Lawson and her partner, Ezra Dye, walked through the glass doors that morning. The familiar bell overhead rang as if nothing had changed, but the atmosphere inside was different. The usual crowd of regulars sat in silence, their eyes darting between the detectives and each other. Whispers followed them, stories they had likely heard many times, but now took on new meaning. Lila scanned the room. The walls were lined with faded photographs of better days, local celebrations, graduations, and community events. But it was the faces sitting at the booths that interested her now. In the corner sat Lucan Miles, his hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee. When their eyes met for a brief second, he quickly looked away. Lucan had been a regular at the diner for years, but rumors of his involvement with Amir had only recently started to swirl. It was time to find out just how deep that connection went. Lila approached Lucan's booth with a calm but firm demeanor, with Ezra just behind her. "Mr. Miles, we'd like to ask you a few questions," she said, her voice soft but commanding. Lucan didn't look surprised. He placed his coffee down carefully, wiping his hands on a napkin as if trying to delay the inevitable. "About Amir?" Lucan said quietly, his voice thick with something that sounded like regret. He didn't wait for Lila to confirm. "I knew this was coming." Lila slid into the booth across from him, her eyes studying every detail of his face, the tired lines around his eyes, the slight tremble in his hands. "You were close with her," she said. Lucan nodded slowly. "More than I should have been." That was the first admission. Lila glanced at Ezra, who stood silently beside the booth with his notepad ready. "How close?" Lila pressed gently. Lucan took a deep breath, the weight of his next words visibly straining him. "We were involved. She came into my life after my wife passed. I was lost. She made me feel like I had a second chance. But it wasn't right. I knew that. She was too young, and I was too broken." "Did anyone else know about your relationship with her?" Ezra asked. Lucan hesitated. "Not officially, but people talked." "I wasn't the only one," seeing Lila's pulse quicken, Lucan revealed. "There's also Benedict Arlo. He runs the construction company in town." His voice was tight. "And then there's Malik Hind. He was her teacher in high school, but they stayed in touch after she graduated." Lila's stomach twisted. 3 men, all significantly older than Amir, all tangled in her life. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture was still incomplete. Each of these men had something to lose, and now one of them might have lost control. "We're going to need you to stay available, Mr. Miles," Lila said as she rose from the booth. "We'll be in touch." Lucan nodded silently, his eyes fixed on the table as the detectives walked away. Lila could feel the weight of his confession hanging in the air, but she knew this was just the beginning. As they stepped back outside into the late morning sun, Ezra spoke first. 3 men, all older, all with reasons to be desperate. One of them could have snapped. "Or all of them could have felt cornered," Lila replied, her mind racing through the possibilities. "We need to talk to Benedict Arlo and Malik Hind and see what they have to say. If there was jealousy between them, that could have been a trigger." Ezra nodded. If they found out about each other, things could have turned ugly fast. Lila agreed but added, "It's not just about jealousy, it's about power." These men felt powerful when they were with Amir, a young woman who, despite her charm, was vulnerable in ways they couldn't or wouldn't see. Now that power dynamic has shifted, and someone made sure Amir wouldn't be able to reveal their secrets. As they drove away from the diner toward Benedict Arlo's office, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that this case would uncover more than just a murder. It would expose the dark truths hidden beneath the surface of Ellenville, a town that had always seemed quiet until now. Amir had been playing with fire, and in doing so, she had ignited a blaze that would consume not only her life, but also the lives of the men caught in her web. Benedict Arlo's office was nothing like Lila expected. The construction magnate worked out of a modest, cluttered space at the edge of town. Blueprints were scattered across the large wooden desk, and the air was thick with the smell of sawdust. As Lila and Ezra walked in, Benedict stood behind the desk, talking on the phone. His thick frame, rugged from years of manual labor, commanded the room, but uneasiness flickered in his eyes when he saw the detectives. "Detectives," Benedict said, ending his call abruptly. His voice was gruff, but there was tension beneath the surface. "What brings you here?" "We need to talk about Amir Winter," Lila said, getting straight to the point. She carefully watched his reaction, looking for any sign of weakness. Benedict didn't flinch, but his eyes narrowed slightly, revealing more than he realized. "I figured this was coming," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "I knew this whole mess would catch up with me eventually." "Mess?" Ezra asked, stepping forward. What do you mean by that? Benedict sighed and sank into his chair. His shoulders slumped. I was involved with Amir, but I swear I didn't kill her. Whatever happened to her, it wasn't me. Why don't you start from the beginning? Lila said, her voice calm but firm. Benedict nodded, leaning forward. I met her at the diner. She was always so full of life. She had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. After a while, things got complicated, and we started seeing each other. It wasn't serious, at least not for me, but I knew it was wrong. I knew people would talk. And did they? Ezra asked, jotting down notes. Benedict hesitated, his fingers nervously drumming on the desk. Yeah, people knew, but it wasn't just me. She was involved with others, Luke and Miles for one, and then Malik Hind. He was the one she seemed to care about the most. I could tell. At the mention of Malik, Lila's interest sharpened. How did you feel about her relationship with Malik? Benedict's expression hardened. I didn't care, at least not really. I was looking for a relationship, but Malik was different. He was possessive. He didn't like sharing her, and she didn't see it. He was older, more experienced. I think he liked the control. Lila exchanged a glance with Ezra. Control. That was a word she had heard too often in cases like these. Older men and younger women. It was always about control. Did you ever confront him about it? Lila asked. Benedict shook his head. No, I didn't care enough to, but I could see it in his eyes. The jealousy. It was like he thought she belonged to him. Lila's gut told her that Benedict was telling the truth, or at least a version of it. But the more he talked about Malik, the more he became the central figure in this tangled web. A teacher with access to Amir during her most formative years, who continued their relationship long after she had graduated. Where were you 2 nights ago? Ezra asked, leaning slightly forward. At home, alone, Benedict replied, meeting Ezra's gaze without flinching. I don't have an alibi, if that's what you're asking, but I didn't do it. Did you know Amir had been seeing Malik after you were involved with her? Lila pressed. Benedict nodded slowly. Yeah, she told me, but I think she underestimated him. I think he wanted her to stay away from the rest of us. Lila could feel the puzzle pieces coming together slowly but surely. If Malik was as possessive as Benedict claimed, his jealousy could have escalated, especially if he found out about the others. This was no longer about casual relationships. It was about obsession, control, and power. As they left Benedict's office, Lila turned to Ezra. We need to talk to Malik Hind next. If what Benedict says is true, he could have been pushed over the edge. Ezra nodded, his face grim. He sounds like the type who wouldn't take well to sharing her. Lila agreed. Malik was no longer just a name on their list of suspects. He was becoming the focal point of their investigation. Whatever happened to Amir was becoming clearer by the minute, and it seemed that Malik Hind might be the one who couldn't let her go. Malik Hind's home stood at the far edge of town, an old Victorian house with peeling paint and an air of abandonment. As Lila and Ezra approached, the heavy silence around the house felt oppressive, as if it had witnessed things better left unsaid. Malik opened the door after a few knocks, his face stern and composed, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. He was in his early 50s, tall and thin, with graying hair. His scholarly appearance fit the image of a high school teacher, but Lila sensed something darker lurking beneath the surface. Detectives, Malik greeted them with a forced calmness. I assume this is about Amir. Lila nodded. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your relationship with her. Malik stepped aside, allowing them to enter. His living room was sparse, with stacks of books and papers cluttering every surface. Lila's eyes landed on a framed picture of Amir tucked away on a shelf. It seemed out of place, as if Malik had hidden it from the world, but couldn't bring himself to part with it. I was her teacher, Malik began as they sat down. After she graduated, we stayed in touch. She needed guidance, someone to help her navigate life. His tone was calm and rehearsed, as if he had thought through every word. Guidance, Lila repeated, raising an eyebrow. You weren't just her teacher, were you? Malik hesitated and then let out a slow sigh. No, I wasn't. We became involved, but it was complicated. I cared for her deeply, but she was lost, searching for something I couldn't give her. And what was she searching for? Ezra asked. Validation, Malik said quietly. She had a way of making men feel important, needed. But she was always looking for something more, moving from one person to the next. It's why things didn't last between us. Lila leaned forward, her voice soft but direct. And how did you feel about her seeing other men? Luke and Miles and Benedict Arlo, for instance? Malik's expression darkened. They were using her. They didn't care about her like I did. She deserved better than that. Lila felt the shift in his tone, possessiveness creeping through his calm exterior. Did you ever confront her about them? I tried to warn her, Malik replied, his voice strained. I told her those men would destroy her, but she wouldn't listen. She kept going back to them. She thought she could handle it, but I knew it would end badly. Ezra's eyes narrowed. Did you ever think about stopping them, making sure they couldn't hurt her? Malik's hands trembled slightly as he folded them in his lap, his gaze falling to the floor. I just wanted to protect her, he whispered. I never meant for things to go this far. Lila exchanged a glance with Ezra. Malik's words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken intentions. The investigation had just taken a dark turn, and Malik was at its center. Back at the station, Lila sat at her desk, piecing together the fragments of Malik Hind's story. His possessiveness and desperation to protect Amir hinted at deeper, darker feelings. But there was no direct evidence, until a call came in. Ezra rushed in, holding a file. You need to see this, he said, spreading the papers across Lila's desk. Forensics found traces of blood in Malik's car. Not just any blood, Lila's heart pounded. Amir's. That's enough for an arrest, Ezra said. As they prepared to bring Malik in, another surprise emerged. A neighbor of Malik's had come forward. On the night of Amir's death, she had seen Malik arguing with Amir near his car, shouting angrily. Amir had looked distressed but didn't leave. Instead, she got into Malik's car. With this new information, Lila felt the pieces fit together. Malik's obsession, his jealousy over Amir's other relationships, and now the forensic evidence tied him to her final moments. It was clear that his desire to control Amir had turned fatal. When they arrested Malik, his facade cracked. He tried to remain composed, but under questioning, his guilt surfaced. I didn't mean to hurt her, he confessed, his voice shaking. I just wanted her to understand she couldn't keep running to them. Malik Hind's dangerous obsession had led to the tragic end of Amir Winter's life. As he was taken away in handcuffs, Lila felt the weight of the case settle, knowing the truth was finally out. The trial of Malik Hind was swift. The overwhelming evidence, the blood found in his car, the witness testimony, and his own confession, left little room for doubt. The prosecution painted him as a man consumed by jealousy and control, whose obsession with Amir Winter had turned deadly. Malik's defense attempted to frame the incident as a crime of passion, but it wasn't enough. The jury returned with a guilty verdict. Malik was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Amir Winter. For Amir's family, the verdict brought a bittersweet sense of justice. Her mother, Eliza, wept openly in court, mourning the daughter she had lost to a world she never fully understood. The small community where Amir had lived and loved was left shaken, forever scarred by the tragedy. Lila and Ezra stood quietly outside the courthouse after the trial. The case had ended, but its impact would linger. Amir's story was one of youthful naivety, entangled in a dangerous game with older men who sought to possess her. As Lila reflected, she hoped this would serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how fragile and fleeting life could be when love turned to obsession. Amir Winter's story serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of being naive, especially for young individuals entangled in complex relationships. Amir was a bright young woman with big dreams, but her naivety made her vulnerable. She thought she could handle relationships with older men, not fully understanding the risks involved. This highlights the importance of being aware of our surroundings and the people we choose to let into our lives. Relationships, particularly those with significant age differences, can quickly shift from love to obsession, making it crucial to pay attention to how others treat us. Amir's experiences show that love should not come with control or pressure. Healthy relationships should be based on mutual respect and understanding. Another important lesson from Amir's story is about self-respect. Amir sought validation and attention from multiple partners, which ultimately led her to compromise her worth. Self-respect means valuing oneself and recognizing one's own importance. When we don't respect ourselves, we may tolerate unhealthy relationships or behaviors. Amir's journey teaches us to be confident in who we are and to seek relationships that uplift us rather than diminish our self-worth. Additionally, Amir's story emphasizes the need to recognize red flags in relationships. She ignored several warning signs that indicated something was wrong. A red flag is a signal that should not be overlooked, such as controlling behavior or jealousy. It's essential to trust our instincts and take those feelings seriously. If someone makes us feel uncomfortable or less valued, we must consider whether that relationship is healthy. The theme of obsession is also central to Amir's narrative. Malik Hind's possessiveness and jealousy over Amir revealed a dangerous side of love. When love becomes obsession, it can lead to tragic outcomes. Amir's experiences remind us that healthy love encourages freedom and trust, while obsession stifles it. Furthermore, every choice we make carries consequences that can affect not only ourselves, but also those around us. Amir's decisions led her to dangerous situations, highlighting the importance of thinking carefully about our actions. We should consider how our choices will impact our future and the lives of those connected to us, as each decision can create a ripple effect. Seeking guidance and support is another valuable lesson from Amir's story. Having trusted friends or family to talk to about our relationships can provide perspective and help us see things more clearly. Amir might have found a different path if she had shared her struggles with someone who could have offered help. Building a support system is vital, as it allows us to gain insight from those who genuinely care about us. Communication plays a key role in any relationship. Amir's inability to express her feelings or concerns led her to make choices that ultimately put her in danger. Open and honest communication allows us to establish boundaries, voice concerns, and work through problems together. Amir's story teaches us that being open about our emotions can prevent misunderstandings and help us build healthier relationships. Additionally, Amir's tragic story impacted her entire community, emphasizing the importance of awareness and vigilance. When something seems off in a relationship, it's crucial for friends, family, and community members to speak up. If we notice someone who appears to be in a troubling relationship, we should offer our support. Encouraging open discussions about relationships, love, and boundaries can create a more aware and protective community. Finally, Amir's story reminds us of the fragility of life. She had a bright future ahead of her, but one series of unfortunate choices led to her untimely death. Life is unpredictable, and we must cherish each moment while being mindful of the choices we make along the way. Amir's journey encourages us to appreciate our lives and strive for healthy, loving relationships. In conclusion, Amir Winter's story is a cautionary tale that underscores the importance of self-respect, awareness, and the consequences of our choices. It highlights the need for healthy relationships built on mutual respect, understanding, and open communication. As we reflect on her journey, let it serve as a reminder to protect ourselves and support those we care about. By doing so, we can foster a safer and more understanding environment for everyone,